Pressure is on for Expo 2020 Dubai, with approximately a year to go until all major construction work needs to be finished in October 2019. My name is Oscar Russo. Joining me is Jack Ball, Construction Week's senior reporter. And in this week's podcast, we review progress on the Expo 2020 mega project as the clock continues to tick down to deadline day for major construction. Jack, it's really crunch time now for Expo, wouldn't you say?
Oh, I completely agree. I think, we had our CW Leaders 2018 Summit last week, and the VP of Real Estate and Delivery, Ahmed Al-Khatib, was giving a really positive update on where we stand at the moment. And I think there's a lot to look forward to and a lot to keep an eye out for, Oscar, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. And, you look at the Expo site, 4.38 kilometers squared. It's rapidly taking shape. I think there are around 45 tower cranes still on site, around 20,000 workers on site at the moment. Now, that is set to double in the next year and 1 month when construction kind of reaches its peak. So there's, as you mentioned, a lot going on, but also in terms of progress so far, a lot has already been completed, Jack. You've got construction is well advanced on the 3 thematic districts that kind of form the core and the beating heart of the Expo 2020 site. Of course, the 3 themes, mobility, sustainability, and opportunity, rapidly taking shape as well. Foundation work and structural works are now complete within these areas. And Ahmed Al-Khatib told me that approximately 243,000 cubic meters of concrete was poured during the construction of the thematic districts. Now, this has been completed. There's been lots of progress, and it's really exciting.
No, those figures are crazy. When does, we're looking at all these projects and they're nearing completion. When's the kind of deadline, Oscar, for all kind of construction work to finish there?
Well, as I mentioned in the intro, Jack, the deadline for major construction work to finish is October 2019. Now, that will leave all the teams on site, and there are many different teams on site, a year to do all of the testing and preparation before Expo opens its doors to the world in October 2020. So that gives them a lot of time. And, that means it's, in the Middle East where, it's notorious for projects overrunning and projects overspending. Ahmed Al-Khatib, when he spoke at Construction Week's Leaders in UAE Summit, he spoke about the due diligence and the importance all the teams on site are placing on finishing the project on time and on budget.
We're looking here, phase 1 infrastructure is now complete. Phase 2 infrastructure, as Ahmed Al-Khatib pointed out again last week, that is on track to complete by the end of this year, I believe. I think that's what he said last week.
Well, exactly, yeah. And both of those infrastructure packages include sewage lines, they include telecommunication lines. So work is really, really ramping up at the moment. And of course, we've seen projects completed to date. The 3 DEWA substations were completed earlier this year. They are now live and generating power. You've also got a deal that was announced on 8 August for EHG to provide an authentic experience with a strong local flavour at various locations across the Expo 2020 site, including VIP clubs and lounges, as well as hotels and restaurants in Dubai.
That's a really positive and quite an achievement for the Emaar Properties subsidiary, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I would say so. And, of course, when you look at the number of local companies working on the project, that I think is something really important to note. Of course, Emaar is managing the design and delivery of 2 of the pavilions. You've also got a range of other contractors engaged on various works for the project. You've, of course, got Alec, which is building one of the pavilions. You've got Arab Tech. You've got
Mark Andrews. Got Mark Andrews. He was talking to me, talking to Construction Week from Langham Road, Middle East. Al Wasl Plaza, that's a really big one that they're working on.
Yeah, of course. And Al Wasl Plaza, that's now coming together as well. The dome trellis, the steel dome trellis, they shipped all the parts from Italy where they were cast, and there was a deal with Dubai ports as well to ensure that all of the pieces for the trellis were, they got through the ports very quickly and efficiently, and there was no delay in terms of the shipping there. So you're seeing, what I think is interesting is just the collaboration between a lot of different stakeholders across Dubai, and that's been really kind of exciting to note. But also, when you think about the project, Jack, what I think really stands out is the highlights and the benefits and the way it's helped elevate standards and push Dubai forwards.
No, absolutely. And I think you're seeing that in a lot of the kind of figures coming out in terms of sustainability efforts, and the waste strategy as well, Oscar. 85% of the waste as highlighted again from CW's site visit, 85% of that the waste is to be segmented, and that's to allow for treatment and diversion away from landfill. That's a really big figure.
It's a really big figure, and that figure is actually above a figure that was enshrined by the 2021 strategy or 2021 vision for Dubai, which I believe the figure is between 70 and 75% of waste, which is solid and municipal, and construction waste as well, to be diverted away from landfill. And that contextually, that's part of Dubai's strategy to reduce waste and become one of the world's most sustainable countries in the world. And the UAE is an incredible strategy, really. And that's just one of the many exciting highlights I think we've seen. You look at the sand that's been kind of like taken away. Like construction teams have, I think, shifted 2,500 Olympic-sized swimming pools of sand so far. And what I think is really interesting, when you were touching on the sustainability of the project. Now, for Expo, they're building around 30,000 car parking spaces, and the asphalt mix used to surface those roads, 20% of that asphalt mix comes from recycled tyres. So again, they're looking at how they can incorporate more recycled materials into the project. And when I spoke to Ahmed Al-Khatib earlier this month, he mentioned that this could be a first for Dubai, and that's just one of many ways that standards are being raised.
Yeah, I think there's a lot, absolutely, there's a lot that can be carried over, and a lot of standards and guidelines that are being adopted at Expo, continuing to be adopted more widely for years to come. I think that can only be a really positive move.
Exactly. I mean, you look at, sorry, just to cut in there,
ahead.
But you've got the project at the moment is 25% below DEWA's baseline for water consumption for buildings. Really, really impressive. You've also got all of the temporary lighting used on site, and this is a big site, Jack, over 4 kilometers squared. All of that temporary lighting is powered using solar panels.
That's a huge achievement, and again, I think this is a lot of firsts are happening here, and the numbers are really great. And I don't know if you mentioned this, but 42 million work hours, I don't know if you mentioned that, have been completed with 20,000 people on site. I just want to touch on as well, in terms of the green efforts, the kind of sustainability efforts. Expo has actually also established an on-site nursery to grow thousands of plants for the development, and approximately within that number, 13,000 mature trees and 300,000 shrubs have been grown to date. Just to interject there, but Jack,
that is an incredible achievement, to be growing all these plants in the desert.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, when you have to, this horticultural effort and this, this agricultural effort to grow trees, to grow plants, you need a lot of water.
Yeah, and it's all recycled though.
All recycled. It all comes from, treated effluent and stuff like that. So, all grey water, which is really fantastic.
No, absolutely. And as going back to what we were saying earlier about what can the Emirate, what can Dubai learn more generally from this project? I mean, Oscar, do you have any kind of thoughts on how Dubai can learn?
I mean, there's so many ways that Dubai can learn. And when Construction Week spoke to Ahmed Al-Khatib earlier this month, he said that in his view, the standards introduced on the site will elevate standards across Dubai. And there are many different ways in which we are seeing this take form. One in which is the industry-leading sustainability standards. Now, there are over 41 in total KPIs covering sustainability of the project. Now, all of the building teams on site, and we've mentioned many of them, such as Arab Tech and Alec, Langal Rook as well, they follow a waste strategy that encourages firms to reduce, reuse or recycle as much as possible. And this is a really key mantra that's being driven and followed by all of the different stakeholders on site. And when you've got so many different contractors and subcontractors on site, it can sometimes be difficult to all sing off the same sheet. But they're doing that very well.
No, I think, that's always going to be a challenge. And even looking at, some of the projects that have really gained a lot of attention, the Sustainability Pavilion, for example. It's designed to be one of the most kind of self-sustaining buildings in the region. And again, it's producing much of its energy and its water consumption, and it's those requirements through solar panels and recycled water, among other things. But those are the two kind of main pillars that are making it as sustainable as possible.
Well, exactly. And when you're building a sustainability pavilion, the key is to make it sustainable.
Surprisingly, yeah.
Precisely. But what's fascinating is, and I'd never come across this technology used before when we went around the site, is that it has a moisture harvesting system. So it sucks moisture out of the air and transforms that into water, which is, call me a layman, but I had no idea that technology even existed on such a huge scale. And actually what's interesting is a source told me that Expo 2020 in their cafeteria, they have a miniature version of the technology, which is capturing moisture from the cafeteria air and using it for drinking water for all the staff as well, which I thought was a nice
next generation. I like that.
Exactly, yeah. So there's a range of different ways that it's really kind of driving forward a lot of like really interesting sustainability standards. And of course, Expo is set to achieve at least the LEED Gold certification for all permanent buildings, which will form the core part of District 2020, which of course is the legacy project for Dubai Expo 2020.
No, absolutely. I think those are all really positive moves. That certification as well is something that they should be rightly proud of. I think. And again, just kind of like more generally, I think Expo 2020 they're smart building. They're using smart grid technologies as well. And again, this is all about trying to reduce their energy consumption by kind of around 20%. And this comes in the support of Siemens as well, which who are Expo's premier partner for intelligent infrastructure and operations. So all really big numbers. And again, as you said, everyone is singing off the same hymn sheet. So it's really positive.
It is positive, and as the clock kind of ticks down again, it's going to be really key that all of these parties work together, that they work together on sustainability, on the delivery, on the construction, on keeping the project on time and on budget as the project reaches that real critical period. Jack, I think that's a really good point to end it on there, a point that I've made. Anyway, I'd like to say thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Oscar. Always a pleasure.
You've been listening to Construction Week Viewpoint. We publish new episodes at midday every Monday. Please join us next week for another conversation about the built and natural environment. Until then, thank you very much for listening and goodbye.
Goodbye.